This week on FIFA Football Mundial, we meet the boy from Burundi who's found a new home in Holland. We talk to a man whose only goal came on the biggest stage of all. And we remember the day Brazil scored at 2 goals a minute. Winter in the Dutch town of Nijmegen. Home to around 160,000, it can claim to be the oldest town in Holland after celebrating 2,000 years of existence in 2005. It's in the far east of the country, lying just 10 minutes' drive from the German border. And it was the scene of fierce fighting in the Second World War. The town's football club is equally historic. NEC is one of the oldest clubs in Dutch football. But what's recently been turning a few heads is that their new-look stadium is home to a player from the war-torn Central African country of Burundi.
When I came to Holland, I applied for asylum because there were many problems back home in Burundi. I tried to ignore it and just stayed focused on playing football. And I've left all that behind me now. I am proud and happy to be here because I'm working and doing what I love. I'm grateful for being able to stay here and for having the chance to become a professional footballer.
Saidi and ntibazonkiza arrived in Holland 4 years ago, aged just 18. Continuous fighting in his homeland meant he was one of many asylum seekers looking to start a new life. But this was never going to be easy at such a young age, and with a wife and young child to support. He could easily have been heading for a fall.
When I arrived here, things were difficult. I wasn't very happy because I was here alone, without my parents. I was used to spending lots of time with my mum and dad in Burundi. But when I got here, it was just me trying to look after my wife and child, so it was tough. But I began to study and started to work, which went well. I then started playing football again and soon became part of NEC. But again, it was difficult for me. When I was fit, I trained well, but training twice a day was hard. I felt very tired, but luckily, I've got used to it, and now it's just normal for me.
Normal in Nijmegen also includes training in freezing temperatures. That's not something frequently found in Central Africa. But after joining NEC's first-team squad in 2006, Saidi settled quickly, and his debut soon followed.
It's what I'd always wanted. When speaking to my dad, I once told him that one day I would be playing professional football in Europe. My dearest wish in life was that football would be my work. So I'm very lucky and proud that this is what I do, and I can call it my job.
That first match was in November 2006 as he came off the bench to face Sparta Rotterdam in front of an expectant home crowd. And he made an immediate impact. It was his cross that set up Romano Deneboom's strike. Electric pace and an eye for goal have convinced NEC to secure his services until at least 2012, with Saidi signing a contract extension earlier this year. These attributes have also given opposition defenders nightmares, not least Feyenoord's Giovanni van Bronckhorst. NEC are now building on the foundations laid by his father.
I originally started playing football when I was 6 years old with my dad back in Burundi. Growing up, I played with him and he taught me a lot. I'm so grateful to my dad for having taught me how to play football, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be playing. So I'm very thankful.
His efforts haven't gone unnoticed by the fans in Nijmegen, who've taken to him as one of their own. But you're still unlikely to hear anything but his first name chanted from the terraces.
For a lot of people, it's very difficult to say. So when meeting people, I just tell them my name's Saidi. My surname's long and it's pronounced ntibazonkiza. But when people try to say it, they come out with all sorts of things and find it really difficult to pronounce. And I like to make fun of them. So people just call me Saidi.
He's now holding down a regular place in the NEC team, which currently lie in mid-table. Last season they finished 8th, but thanks to Dutch football's complex playoff system for European competition, NEC managed to qualify for the UEFA Cup. They were drawn in a tough group, featuring Tottenham, Spartak Moscow and Dinamo Zagreb. But following last month's 2-0 victory at home to Italian outfit Udinese, they progressed to the last 32. The focus is now on getting past Hamburg for a place in the last 16 and on progressing up the Eredivisie League table. However, Saidi himself has got bigger plans.
In the future, I need to do everything I can to play as well as possible, so I get a chance to play for one of the really big teams. It's not that I don't like where I am now, but I want to do a lot more. Just like any other ambitious player, I want to go to a massive club. I love playing here, but I've got this desire to move on. Playing well at one of the big teams. This is my ambition.
And if that happens, many more people will get to know the man everyone calls Saidi. Every weekend in Bratislava, some of the best junior footballers in town get together. They're part of one of Slovakia's top football academies, run by Dr. Jozef Vengloš.
Every time I come to see these young players, I feel a great deal of joy. You just need to look around you, and you can see that these children are very happy. They show that they are in the exuberant way they play the game. They show they have the sport of football in their hearts. Setting up this academy might have cost me a fair bit of money, but I don't mind. This is just a small part of my payback to the sport I love, and I really think that we're making progress in bringing these players through to a higher level. Some players have come here and gone on to be selected to represent their regions or even the national team at their various age groups. Some have even represented their country abroad.
Jozef Vengloš is one of the grand old men of Central European football. He's been involved at the top level for over half a century as player and coach, but he's most closely associated with the only club he ever played for. He joined them in 1954, and they became one of Europe's biggest names. They are Slovan Bratislava.
Slovan is an icon of football here in Slovakia, and I believe that, in the future, it will once more bring through players of the same calibre as it did in the past. In those days, we had so many international players, and the family atmosphere that we created right here at Slovan was taken all the way through to the national team. In those days, our Czechoslovakian national team played their most important matches here in Bratislava, in this very stadium. We played matches here against the likes of England, against Italy and against Spain. There was a good reason for that as well. The atmosphere generated in the stadium was wonderful, and our fans acted as our 12th, 13th or even our 14th player.
Vengloš was coach of Slovan in the early 70s and assistant to the Czechoslovak national team. Many of his club players, such as Anton Ondrus, Jan Kapkovic and Marian Mašny, were members of the squad that brought Czechoslovakia their greatest triumph, the 1976 European Championship. Vengloš's coaching career, which began in 1966 after his retirement as a player, took him round the world. but he was back in his homeland in 1990, guiding Czechoslovakia to the last 8 in their final major tournament, the FIFA World Cup. Their best performance was their demolition of the USA.
This match was particularly memorable for me, and for a strange reason. It's because I remember their coach saying, in a television interview, that the Czechoslovakian team should be the easiest for his team to beat. But this was good for us, and his words helped me motivate our players. I did that by finding a video and showing them the interview with the American coach. I told my players to show him precisely what they were capable of. And so we won by 5-1. The outcome of the match was excellent. Our display was complete and conclusive. Skuravi scored 3, and the team played some very good football.
Vengloš went on to manage in England, Scotland and, after the Velvet Revolution, his native Slovakia. He finished his coaching career in Japan in 2002. That didn't mean an end to his involvement with football. Josef Vengloš is now one of FIFA's technical advisors, reporting on new developments in the game and advising national associations on their football progress. But his pride and joy is the Vengloš Football Academy in Bratislava. Founded in 1999, it has teams ranging from 8 years of age to senior level and has produced players good enough to play for the national under-18 squad. But then Josef Vengloš has always lived the game of football. Few men in the world understand it quite as deeply.
These days, football is changing all the time. There are all sorts of new elements involved in the game. Certain things have emerged recently that need to be considered, even though a few years ago, no one would ever have imagined they could be a tool for a good coach. One of the main things now is the way that psychology can be applied to the playing of the game. I think that the psychology of a team, or even an individual player, is now the most important factor in improving the quality of play. Top European football is now very even, and it's the small things that matter. Whoever makes fewer mistakes, whoever can gain a mental advantage, whoever can maintain pressure better or make immediate use of counter-attacks, they're the ones who'll win the battle. It's your form on the day that will win you the match in the very best competitions. There are no weak opponents in European football these days. There are only good teams and excellent teams. It all depends on the form of the players and coaches on any given day, and they must gain every advantage they can. The very best coaches are almost intellectuals. They don't see the match merely as a physical confrontation. There needs to be something which, I suppose, could be described as a symbiosis between the physical and the intellectual.
Last year at the FIFA Futsal World Cup, Russia played the Solomon Islands. And after 2 20-minute halves, they ended up winning by 31-2. It was certainly a record World Cup score, but a world record for a futsal international? Not by a long way. The team that hold that record are the world champions. Brazil, for many years, the kings of futsal. Their opponents that day have a very different futsal pedigree. Timor-Leste is a tiny Asian nation which came into being less than a decade ago. With a minute playing base, it's no surprise that their international matches consist of double-digit defeats, punctuated by the occasional goal. But Timor-Leste has one thing in common with Brazil: its language. In 2006, Ari and Rogério, two of Brazil's world champion squad, went to Macau to represent their country at the Games of the Portuguese-speaking nation.